All right, Jared. Good to see you, my friend. How's things been?
I've been doing pretty good, Vinny. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. Now, we met like summer of 2023 in Roswell, New Mexico, at the Roswell event there, and it was good to connect and hear about the kind of things that you were into, like really focusing kind of on the CE5, I think, majorly at the time, and
Mhm.
then you've obviously developed that into like a company, as it were.
Yeah.
So that's I was really excited to sort of get you on and talk about that. And then obviously it came out that you'd done a little bit of work with the Skywatcher team as well. So yeah, we'll jump into that. But let's take it right back to like when the UFO subject or UFOs in general kind of first came onto your radar.
That's a great question. I guess I'll give a little more context to it, or maybe I'll dip a little bit into the experiences because that's kind of like how the initiation, if you will, kind of started for me.
Cool.
Well, I grew up religious. At this time of my life, I was living kind of through a worldview of like agnosticism or atheism, and it's still humanitarian and trying to figure out where humans are going and how do we survive as a species and ethically treat each other nicely and stuff. But I just didn't have any room in my brain at that point in my life for anything deemed kind of metaphysical or supernatural or anything like that. And so I had created a Reddit account. I wasn't even on really social media, but I'd created a Reddit account for Star Wars stuff. I was just nerding around about
Nice.
Star Wars stuff. Yeah. And then in that, I was on Reddit and I came across this article during COVID. So it was like during 2020 and it was a year after, but when the Pentagon released a statement about the 3 videos that were in that New York Times article. And so we all know those, the gimbal, the go fast, and the Nimitz. And it was surprising to me because at that point I was just kind of like, why would the Pentagon touch this thing, right? Like, why even make a statement on it? Isn't this supposed to be a bunch of baloney type stuff? And just, got curious though, because, they wrote about it for some reason. And that's when I really started investigating UFOs and just went over like all those classic cases, like who's the guy, Socorro and Zimbabwe, and just a bunch of those things, Chicago O'Hare, and really just started to build that picture. And then, I'm sorry, was the first question, how do we get to Roswell? Oh no, how did I get on the UFO topic? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, so I was researching all that stuff, and I had bought off Craigslist, which is like a secondhand kind of type app out here, a telescope, and I was out in my side yard around. It was around that Great Conjunction is when I got it. So it was all during this kind of 2020 COVID time. And I was out there trying to do some astrophotography, and over my foothills, which you can't see out this window, but I kind of live by some foothills. And for 4 nights in a row, there was what felt like a stationary light that was flashing at me, and it would give like, I don't know, 6 to 10 flashes or something, but really bright in magnitude, brighter than any of the stars, or even Venus when it first rises up is really bright, right? Like just the brightest thing in the sky. And I remember on the 4th night calling my wife out, who's in the living room or something. And I'm like, hey, do you see this too? And she's like, yeah. I was like, have you ever seen anything like that? And she's like, no. And I just didn't know what it was. And so I that provoked me even more. And so I got a little curious and looked up like satellite phenomenon or space, was it geosynced space junk that's glinting off the sun or something? And nothing really kind of satisfied my mind. I saw videos of iridium flares or tumbling satellites, and it just didn't look anything like that, right? And the closest thing that I found were like these posts on Reddit at that time. There were people doing CE5, and the videos that they were capturing did look just really similar to what I was seeing. And so I was still kind of not willing to accept it. And then I was watching this interview with Luis Elizondo when he was early on. Remember he was making all those rounds and everyone's podcasts and stuff. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think that show came out on the History Channel with Mellon and that kind of era. And in it, the interviewer guy was telling him at the end about some of his own experience. Was started off with some of these like flashing lights in the sky, and at that moment, I just kind of caved in. I was like, dang, like my worldview is incomplete, right? Like, and I remember telling myself, I was like, damn, the universe is more mysterious than I've allowed it to be, right? Like I've kind of like boxed it in a little bit.
Sure.
And in that moment, I had this like spontaneous spiritual awakening. And I go to the story because this really is where like it all started for me. There was kind of those, in October of 2020, I saw those flashes for 4 nights. And then this is in February of 21. So 4 months later, whatever. And I had like kind of this growing out of body experience where my consciousness just like, I got like frozen in my chair. And then it felt like all of a sudden there was like this current, like I was being not shivering, but like almost being electrocuted or something. Like there was like energy like pulsing through me. And then all of a sudden it's just like I'm no longer contained to my body. It's just like it's growing, right? And as I hit the grass in my yard or the walls, like it was just like this knowingness, or this experience, I should say, that we're like all one, like we're interconnected, right? There's all this one thing. And as it grew out, like it ultimately grew out towards the universe, kind of make a longer story short. And each of those stages was like more and more of this oneness of like experiencing myself, not as just Jared and I'm like in a new place, and I'm kind of like observing other things. It was like, I am all those things too, right? It's hard to put to words. And in those stages of kind of like expanding was also like this just deeper, experience of love, that love eventually begins to fall apart as a word that even kind of contains it, right? And so that was like by far like you know, in my whole life, like the most visceral like spiritual experience I've ever had. And that really like kicked things off for me, Vinny. Like it was after that so much high strangeness started in my life, from ear ringing to the number synchronicity to the UFO contact stuff to like phantom noises in the house, just all of it kind of flooded in. And, you know, I started a journal and all that stuff. And all that came like in just, you know, how it goes, like kind of a journey for yourself, right? As pieces kind of get added on to all of it. So that's kind of how I got started. And one of the things that really, I found myself doing more after that was trying to do CE5. And to my surprise, you know, I was getting responses back from the sky, some more dramatic than others, but, you know, enough things and a variety of things that you reach a point where it's no longer about wishful thinking or belief. It's just knowing, right, that this is a part of reality now. And so that's kind of where I really got, you know, became really, really curious, was after those experiences, and also just put me on this path of like, what is this universe and how does it work? And how do these things come into play? And, you know, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, that's why I kind of got
amazing.
going.
That's really interesting, because I think for the most people, the majority of the people that I've spoken to who are doing a lot of CE5 or human initiated contact, obviously the name Stephen Greer comes up a lot. And I was kind of expecting that from you at some point during that. And you didn't mention him once. And that's really interesting that you kind of found that pathway without, you know, obviously Greer being so big with all the documentaries and everything. You almost come across that, and it's like a lot of people heavily focus on that because of his influence in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you come across Greer? I assume you have, and you know, did that help at all?
Yeah, I mean, I remember digesting documentaries and stuff a lot early on, right? So I mentioned that one with Elizondo, and I was trying to find stuff on the cases, right, too. Like I mentioned Socorro, or the Zimbabwe documentary was really mind-blowing. And I remember watching one of Greer's videos, and even watching some of Jeremy Corbell's on Bob Lazar back then, or, you know, the stuff that was coming out. And I mean, just like being honest, I mean, Greer's stuff felt a little like, at least on the documentary side, I didn't know Greer from the 90s and like read his books and stuff. On the documentary side, it felt a little loose and fast with the facts a little bit, right? And you know, I see TV shows like that too, and I get kind of what media it is. But, you know, where I really found my grounding with the whole contact, like kind of phenomenon, was with James through engaging the phenomenon. And he was the guy that early in the community I found, and you know, he was talking about it. If you go back to some of his earlier videos, you know, you're seeing the contact too, and he's talking a little more directly about it. So he was a guy that I met up early on, and just was able to like help me navigate that path a little bit with some help there. And then later on than that, it was Dr. Joseph Burks, and you know, he coined the term human initiated contact events or experiences, which often gets, you know, the HICE, HICE for human initiated contact events. And I kind of borrowed that term. I thought maybe it was a little more a better of a definition about it, and I liked how he talked about it and stuff. But you know, I think those are similar, you know, or synonymous in my mind as far as you know, what the phenomenon is that we're describing. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really encouraging to hear, because James was a big influence on me when I sort of first entered the community. And you know, looking back at his old work, like you mentioned, and you know, he obviously has focused on Greer, but also so many other people and groups who have been doing human initiated contact, Mission Rama and stuff like that, which I always found really good, that he had this broad overview and wasn't just hyper focused. Like a lot of people get hyper focused on Greer and CE5, and they believe Greer is the man to listen to, and you don't want to listen to anyone else. I'm kind of generalizing a little bit, but that's refreshing to hear that you kind of, the way you look at it and came into it is kind of almost a mirror of how James is as well. And I find that amazing. So that's
yeah.
cool.
And one of the first books I read, because it was suggested so much, was Passport to Magonia, right? And that kind of gave me this like ancient view of it too, right? Of just kind of humans always have considered themselves spiritual and always have been like engaging or interacting with non-human intelligence, right? Like,
sure.
And so in that, going back to Mission Rama, and I was trying to find like the earliest, where it's being described this way, right? Which I know, like, hundreds of years ago, that the concept of aliens and stuff won't be like in the writing and stuff. But
sure.
When did this kind of like contact type efforts kind of crystallize into this modern HICE CE5 thing, Mission Rama thing? And I even found a book from 1959 from like a spiritualist convention down in Southern California. I want to say it was like Encinitas, I think, back in the day, like New Age type movement stuff. And I found a book called Contacting. It was Secrets of Higher Contact, I think, and there's basically about contacting your space brothers, right? And
wow.
And so like this concept of it, I don't think it's owned by anyone. I think anyone can do it, and it's it's part of the fabric of reality that we just I think merits further exploration, and we'll get to that stuff too. Yeah.
Definitely, man. That's amazing. It's good. I like it when people go back and look at the history of this subject, whichever area. That's really, really good. But you mentioned previously about this sighting that you had when you were doing your astral photography. Tell me if you had any experiences in the daytime, or if you've seen any like physical, like metallic objects, or can you give me an overview of some of the things that you've witnessed?
Sure. To answer your questions, yes. One time, and I would bring out my telescope and try to check things. So I would say, like, I've definitely seen things glinting in the daytime that have ended up being like a metallic balloon or something, but I think it's good to, bring out your telescope and stuff. But there was once where it looked more orby, and we'll talk about this more later, but I had this impression, right? It's like I walked outside and I was like, oh, they're here, right? There's almost like a feeling with it. And then I looked up and there was this thing floating around. But as far as a structured craft go, once, and it was after my father-in-law passed, a few days after that, and I was in a motion place, but I was kind of mourning him, right? And I was outside my house alone, and again over this foothill, which is like not that far away. Do you want me to like try to move my camera so you see?
It's if you want,
but you could. Oh, I have it plugged in. Let me just unplug it.
Nah, don't worry too much.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like not that far, right? And so sitting over it, and it wasn't that particular one, it was a little behind this umbrella here, but sitting over the mountain was like an A without its cross, right? Or like an upside down V. And it looked very chrome or like metallic kind of. And it was just sitting there, like not moving, not even drifting, or the arms weren't like swaying at all from the wind. It was just rock solid, just kind of sitting there. And it was like a few minutes, because I was kind of just like processing my father-in-law, who was a great guy in my life, right? And I was like, what is that thing? And so then I backed up into keeping an eye on it. I backed up into my garage, and I brought out my telescope. I already had my stand out here because I was just doing it so much, during that time. And I put it on the stand, and there's two eyepieces. So there's like the main one that comes up right from the telescope, and that's like to get the strongest zoom. But because of the zoom so big, there's like a little finder scope on the side, which is like, I forget what zoom it is, but it's way less than like the big actually looking through the telescope. It's like a little like finder scope. And so I'm looking through the finder scope, and the finder scope basically gets me like a pretty clean view of it, because it wasn't even that far away, right? Like I'm seeing like basically the whole shape in the eyepiece. And dude, Vinny, I'm not even kidding. This thing was like alive, dude. Like it looked like mercury, okay? Like real like chrome metallic. But in it wasn't like a solid thing. It was like there was like ripples happening through it. I don't even know how to say it, but there was like pulsing, right? Of like almost like stuff like rippling through back and forth. And I was like, but you could see it like a wave almost kind of passing through. I was like, what is this thing? So I'm like, I'm gonna get even a better look, right? And I go to my big eyepiece now to get like a massive zoom to really get a look at this thing. And I can't find it, right? And the reason you have the finder scope is there's like a cross in it, and you use that to get it center, right? And then that way, when you're kind of looking in your thing, you got it. And I was like, where is it? I'm looking around, I can't see it. And I take my eyes up, and it's just gone, Vinny. Like it's just totally gone, just disappeared. So that's a structured one. But on the HICE stuff, because I think this is like really fun to explore as far as like from the outside, which I could totally appreciate with that background I had, right, of kind of less or more of a materialist or physicalist worldview, right, and wanting to always jump to these prosaic things like satellites or, these types of things. But it's not satellites, okay, like just for 100%. So one thing, I'll tell you about a synchronicity that's connected to all of this, okay? So I was early on, I went to this Discord thread from a channel, right, a YouTube channel, and it was just like the first community I found, right? Like I created a Twitter profile, but I didn't know anyone, and was honestly just kind of like confused, right? Like, holy shit, this stuff's real. How do I make sense of it, right? And so I found this group, and I was doing CE5 or HICE still, and this one night, I was meditating standing up, and when I opened my eyes, this like owl flew really close to me over my head, right? Like I was wearing a beanie, it was in the winter, and I swear, dude, it could have like took off my beanie or something with its claws. Like very, totally silent, it flew over my head. So I go on there, and I'm like, because I'm totally naive, right? I'm like, does anyone ever do CE5 and get like animals that show? You know what I mean? Like maybe there's, it's like they're seeing it too or something. And they're like, well, what'd you see? And I said, I saw this owl. And they said, we have to read this book by Mike Cleland, right? The Messengers, about owl synchronicities and UFO contact, I think it's called. And so I started to pick up this book, and earlier in it, I was like, synchronicities with that, right? I didn't even know, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, you'll see repeating numbers. And even then I'm like, gosh, this is so hard to swallow, dude. Isn't this just confirmation bias, and
right.
Just kind of, but still like, okay, let me read this book. I saw this owl, and, I had the spontaneous spiritual awakening thing, and let's go figure it out, right? And I'm seeing contact, right, too. It's not like just the owl. But so I'm reading this book, and I'm trying to think if I even have a number that's repeated, and I can't really think of one. And I'm watching this, I think it was a Jeffrey Mishlove, New Thinking Aloud, and he's interviewing, gosh, it may have even been Burks. I may have got that messed up. It was a while back. But Mishlove talked, or maybe it was Grant Cameron and Mishlove. That's who it was. One of those two guys. And they're talking about it. And I remember, in college, I used to screenshot my phone when it was 12:34. I don't know why, but it was just like this subconscious thing that I did, right? The 1, 2, 3, 4. And like, I didn't even know why, dude, but I just did it. And I was like, oh, maybe, but and I didn't even think it was real, because all the examples I had were like a repeating number of like 1111 or something like this. And then in the interview, they're like, oh, and my number is 1234. And I'm like, no way, dude, that's crazy. What are the odds of that, right? Like a 4-digit number. And so then I'm keeping this journal, and I go to give my boss a gift for her birthday, and look on my phone. It's over lunch, and it's 12:34, right? Not reading too much into it, but I'm like, oh, there it is. That's kind of cool, and add it to my journal. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, I got my girls some undivided attention, right? So I go in to do Legos or Barbies with them or something, and then I get like, as soon as I walked in the room, I got like this. I can only describe it. It's kind of like deja vu, where you're taken back, right? And you're like, weird. What is it? And the clock was 11:11, right? And it was only because of that weird deja vu type feeling that I had that I also added that to my journal. And then here's where it starts to get rich. So then I go out and I make CE5. This is all within like a 5-6 day span or something, right? I go out and I make contact one night, and then that morning I wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and I have a secondhand clock in my bathroom, right? And I'm going to use the restroom like half asleep, right? Just like waking up, trying to see what time it is. And it was literally like the scene from Dumb and Dumber when he's in the stall. I saw it click from 3:32 and 59 seconds to click to be exactly 3:33 in the morning, right? Like on the second that I was looking, right? And I was like, that's a trip. I didn't have time to really process. I just went back to bed, And then I wake up the next morning, and in this book from Mike Cleland that I'm reading, he talks about, and mind you, I started keeping this journal, and these are the only 3 examples of me encountering numbers, right? That I only added because I'm being encouraged to, right? Like I'm not even like fully on board with it. And in this book, it says people who experience these owls, right? Weird, who experience UFOs will also see 12:34, 11:11, and they'll wake up to see 3:33 on their alarm clock. And I was just like, no way. Like I can even feel it right now. Like my spine totally melted down, right? And I'm just like, how is this even real? Because how does time work that 15 years ago I was taking those screenshots, right? Like that it became meaningful now, and the odds of it were just blowing my mind, right? And so I'm basically on this like surreal kind of trip with that. And then that night, so I was in the morning when I read that in my book, okay, and I'm like, that's alone is enough. And then at night I go to make contact, and I got into like a real long meditation, and it's like 30 plus minutes of meditating or something like that.
Okay.
And I was really a practicer of meditating back then. And like a snap of the fingers, all of a sudden I'm like seeing in the middle of my meditation, I'm seeing with my eyes closed. And I was going to go make contact, right? I'm out in my yard to do it. I just haven't even gotten to this place where you do like the reach out. I was just kind of like calming down, right? Or just kind of mellowing out still. And I'm seeing with my eyes closed, and there's like these 3 or 4 grays in my yard, and they're approaching me, right? Wearing like a robe or something like this. It was very quick. And I honestly thought, oh, they're here in like physical life, and I'm like sensing them or something, right? Let me open my eyes. And, you know, I got scared, you know, I was pushed on my heels. And these grays appeared like telepathically. And it's like, it was realer than real. Like, it was like I was seeing more clearly than I can with my normal eyes, right? And, and that was like on the cusp of this crazy synchronicity, almost like it was the entry point for me to even be able to experience that or something, right? And one more, because I just thought, like, bringing up, when we talk about synchronicities, like, they're sometimes truly like really mind-blowing like that. And so another night, months later, or sometime last few years, I see like what is, you know, a flashbulb type thing, which is like what is common, and I'll have some video for you that we'll show on this thing. And it like flashed here then, and then it's like a Star Wars laser almost. It like zipped, okay? It goes like, and then it's quiet here, and then it flashes from here, and went right. Flashes almost like how you would like tighten lug nuts or draw a star or something, but more erratic. And it's zipping around this area, and I'm just like jaw dropped watching this, right? Like, no way, because I had seen them kind of flash or flare up, but this was like definitely like the one of those 5 observables or something, right? You know, and then it's over on like this side of the sky, and it's doing this dance over here, and it's about as fast as I could turn my head. It just goes, and it just flew across to the other horizon, right? Wow. And I'm like, holy cow! And I'm standing there still, just taking in what I had just witnessed. And then on this horizon that I'm looking, 15 seconds later, a little off, you know, 20, 30 degrees up or whatever, it starts doing the same dance. But now it's way over here on like the complete other side of the sky. And it's flashing, zipping, and like, you know, flashing, zipping, and I'm like, no way. And then it takes cross back the complete other direction across the other spot of the sky. So there's like, I know it was almost kind of like they were giving me, I don't know, I'm reading this a little bit much, but at the time, how I understood it is like, it was like the journey was like increasing experience, or you know, there was a little bit of like the water being warmed up with it. How about that, right?
Sure.
And also I felt like there was some of it that was like meant to convince me in some ways, which it did a pretty good job of, right? I've never seen anything move like that in the sky. And the only last thing, just to answer your question about as far as like types of responses visually that you're getting from HICE is maybe like 3 or 4 times there's been like these really big, I don't describe like a fireball, like not a shooting star. It's moving way slower than that. And it goes like all the way to the horizon. I mean, well, at least this one time it did, but like real big. One time they came out in 3s. It was like a triangle of them all at once, right? And like wow. 3 massive fireballs descended down. And I'm just watching them, like they're like, it looks like a skyscraper falling out of the sky. Like they're massive, right? And I'm literally waiting for like this impact in the ground, like something that's going to explode there and cause this huge shockwave or something. And it's just silent. But yeah, dude, flash bulbs, the CE5 community calls them power-ups, or something that flares up, you know, something that's moving or displaying some of those 5 observables like we talked about, or structured craft, or even something kind of like fireball-ish. I mean, there's like a variety of stuff. But for me, most of the time, I kind of get those flash bulbs. That's kind of like the thing that I see the most often.
Wow, that's fascinating stuff, man. And you mentioned in there about meditation, and I know across the kind of contact world, people have got their own protocols and stuff. Could you just go into a bit more detail about how you decide that you want to do CE5? So how do you prepare yourself mentally? Is there any sort of structure to, you know, before the sighting? How does it work for you?
Earlier on, it probably matched something. I think everyone has their own language that they use in their head, right? But kind of like bodies of it was probably something similar that's out there, which is like quiet my mind. So tools I'm familiar with is like just doing a body scan, maybe a mantra or focus on my breath, right? But just kind of like trying to get myself out of the day, right? And like come back to myself a little bit. And then from there, and that might take time, right? That could be one of the longest parts of it, to be honest, is just trying to kind of, you know, come back to your third eye, if you will, or, you know, your breath and stuff like that. And then from there, it would just be, honestly, earlier on, I would basically kind of try to revisit that spontaneous spiritual awakening, because it was so much about love. And like, that's more what I was trying to connect back with, I guess. Right. And so it was trying to center on that in some way. And then there would be kind of like, I would try to project it, which I'm literally just imagining, right? Me sending love out to the universe, right? Or that interconnection, or wanting that interconnection to be known more, right? You know, we're treating each other nice and stuff, right? They're themselves and, you know, all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, today, if I'm actually doing CE5, it's probably shorter than that on like where I'm just kind of just thinking about love. Like, you know, did I do something today where I showed someone love, or did I receive it? And that's kind of it. And I think that there's like two things here. There's CE5, let's call it, or HICE, is like kind of this session-based protocol where it's like, I think often understood of is like an event or like a singular thing, right? Like I'm going to go out, I'm going to meditate or whatever, I'm going to reach out. And then if we see something, that's like a CE5 session. And while that's like super real, and I don't, you know how my experiences differ from everyone else's, but there's also like this entanglement with it, or like this relationship, or where like you're not always initiating that after some point, right? Like you could just be going outside to whatever, and all of a sudden you're seeing it, right? Or you're just looking outside your window just casually, right? You know, not even thinking about anything like that, and then they're catching your attention, right? And so like that's a total part of it. I remember going to my wife's friend turned 40. We went there for their birthday, and I stepped outside for a moment, and they were there, right? I've been camping with my friends, and they've been there. So there's totally just like this relational aspect to it too, where they sometimes initiate contact with me, if you will, right? And sometimes I try to do it with whatever it is. And so, yeah, I think there's a session-based protocol thing. And then, I don't know, there's like this like experiencer thing where there's like an ongoing, right? Or something like that. And so on the ongoing stuff, I'm less like protocol-y than I have been when I was in the earlier years, you know, where I was putting more weight into those protocols. But you know what? I'm actually kind of really curious about some of that again. Like, can we listen better to the experiences and reflect some of that back? And, you know, how can we, is there a way to improve communication or whatever, this engagement, right? So I'm semi-curious about some of that stuff too again. Yeah. But for me, it's pretty simple right now.
That's great. That's really, I mean, it makes sense, you know, that you sort of, it's like with anything that you sort of begin, you kind of trying out different ways of doing it. And then I suppose over time you get better at things. Like that's just human nature, I suppose, when we try things. So maybe it just becomes more natural and embedded in the way you are. So at what point did you decide to take this even further? Because now we're getting into the realms today where, you know, you're data collecting, you've got a company. Tell us how that transition came and how, you know, how you thought you wanted to kind of take it to another level.
Yeah, that was a big spoonful of woo that I just served. So, you know, we could kind of transition a little more to the rigorous side of it.
Love it.
But no, I think it's important.
No. I was just going to say, before you jump onto that, I think that's great because you're one of the few individuals that we have that crossover now between, you know, these two separate sides, which is always going to be the woo on one side and the nuts and bolts on the other. And, you know, I came in on the nuts and bolts side, and in the last few years, I've been trying to blend more of it together for my own understanding and I guess development of ways of thinking about this subject. And so I think it's great that you know you're doing that data collection with the woo. I mean, I don't like that word, but I'll use it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're just
do you know what I mean? So yeah, please carry on.
And Jesse Michaels mentioned this once in an interview where he talked about his own sighting, and I think it's like if we don't talk about it, we're only contributing to the stigma and the taboo, right? Like it's I think it's important just to recognize it's supernatural in our world, right? Like it's not, you know, you get what I'm saying. It's natural, and and we should, it's part of our fabric of reality. So yeah. So how do I get on the science stuff? I mean, I'm already like a curious person, and I can get kind of hyper focused on things, and I like to kind of figure things out as much as I can, right? And so I feel in a way that it's like it's just how I would have naturally responded, right? Like they picked on like me, and that's what I'm gonna go do, right? Is like and not to diminish or even ignore, because really I think it's the most important thing is just like how it affects people in their own kind of personal journey with it. And I mean, look at the free literature or some of the other reports, right, on UFO. Like, it makes people more spiritually inclined or less materialistic, right, or less fear of death, and those things are true, right? And I think like reflecting on those changes are maybe one of the most important things about it, right? But for me personally, I was just kind of thinking, really, Vinny, before I even thought this, I think it was just the amount of it. Like, it was just so. And it comes in waves for me, but when the wave's on, it's so consistent. It's just like, right. How is this being ignored? Right? Like it's I don't know. It's insane to me how it's being ignored. And so then, I'm able to research other contact modalities like near-death experiences or psychedelic experiences or these other things, right? Shamanistic and OBE and even UFO experiences, right? And there's just there's not a lot on human-assisted contact. And so there was also like this data gap there that I felt was really just a bummer, right? Because this should have the most data because it's like the thing that's repeating, right? And so if there's like repetition with it, then that should like be the biggest window into like kind of creating understanding or, doing research with it or whatever it is. And so I'm sure it's been done, at some point. It just might not be public, right? But
right.
I'm sorry, you're talking about how to get nuts and bolts in it. And so,
how you got, Conscious Contact Works is your entity, your group or company, let's say. So, I want to sort of understand that journey from you having these experiences. You're getting more comfortable and better at doing CE5, and then obviously you've got this. So that journey and how it came together.
It started with honestly, some exposure to Skinwalker Ranch, even in that show, right? And them kind of taking like a little more of a science approach to it and trying to be data driven. I like that stuff. The industry that I professionally come from, right, is very data driven. And so like, that kind of matches my language or what I'm kind of used to, right, is like being driven by data. And so, and I'm filming it. It's like one of my first questions was, if we could film it and we're capturing like a light signature of it, what other signatures are there that we're missing, right? And what footprint is it leaving in this reality that's measurable? And I bet that there's something else, right? More like it can't just be giving us videos, right? There's definitely more going on like the testimony or the anecdotes of experiencers. And I just imagine there's something else more than a video that we can capture, right? Because there's this real thing that's going on. And so I basically spoke at Roswell at this. This was like, this journey was me speaking at Roswell, because Roswell is basically like a little miniature literature review of like me trying to scan all the academic work that exists on this, which was very little. There's a medical doctor who's involved with ufology down in South America named Dr. Acosta Navarro. And he published 2 papers in a journal about authenticating CE5, but those were largely looking in the past at cases, right, where people are doing things with their minds. Okay. And then the other book is a book by Richard Haynes called CE5, who's worked with NASA, and I think he's been an assistant professor and also a real smart guy. And his book was really cool because while it wasn't in a journal, he had 300 or so cases in there. It may have been 250, I forget, but there's a number of cases in there, and he's basically coding them with certain things. And so like distance between the thought and then the response, and so then at the back end, he has all these tables of all the cases and kind of how that data stacked up along it. And so I thought I really appreciated this work, and I presented on that. And then my challenge, though, it was that both Richard Haynes and Acosta Navarro are both doing like this kind of historical analysis looking to the past. And, if they're validating, the idea of human-assisted contact or CE5, why not go do field work and go do experiments live to collect data, right? Rather than just kind of write about it. And And I presented some ideas of like how to go do that field work, right? And from there, I caught wind of Future Folklore, this guy named Joel, who's a great guy. And I earned like a little micro grant from him, basically. And then that's how I built my first tech stack, which was also just a challenge. And even on that, what I was excited about it was this like a small sync. But I remember watching Skinwalker Ranch one night, and they were talking about this 1.6 signal. And I'm like, all right, I want to go see if human-initiated contact produces the same thing. So I went online and I bought a software-defined radio, right? And it was just this cheap USB thing that you plug in. And I bought that, and then literally that morning is when I bought it, and then I go to get ready for my day, and I'm listening as I'm getting ready to like an emerging threats and capabilities hearing with Arrow, the one where they gave the slides, and they basically said UFO signatures are from 1 to 3 gigahertz in there, and then like totally backed up. I just bought this device to go measure between those ranges, right? So how cool is that? So that was one of the first things I brought in with the tech stack was let's bring in software-defined radio and see if this 1.6 or 1.2, something anomalous spikes. There's one Blue Bit case that was reinvestigated by McDonald, I think, and they found like it's in Loose Threads. They talk about it. There's a 3 gigahertz signal that they found in like a military plane, right? That had seen something and had some sort of receivers to measure that. So that whole 1 to 3 range is really interesting. And that was one tool that I wanted to bring on. That was kind of outward or environmental facing to see if that would occur during it. And then the other 2 things I brought on were a heart rate monitor and then an EEG, right? And the reason for that is because I think that out of all these anomalous experiences, for at least for now, from my perspective, an ontology like idealism or panpsychism or a participatory universe, but something where consciousness is fundamental kind of makes the most sense to me, right? Like how you fit in, even on the science end, like something like quantum entanglement or telepathy or remote viewing. Like, I don't know how to make sense of kind of these like outliers that, Western scientific materialism can't make sense of, right? And so if idealism or consciousness being fundamental is perhaps, at least when I'm looking, maybe closer to the truth, or at least, this is what the experiment's based on, then I think it behooves us to also study the observer, right? Like not just in the sky, but if we are interconnected, or there's some interlinking, or we're sharing some sort of conscious field, or, I don't think we have words to describe all this yet, but then let's go ahead and measure the person too. And, there's sentiment with people that do CE5, like I mentioned, that they can sometimes feel it beforehand, right? And so maybe the heart rate gets really excited before you even see something, right? Or that variability there, or something is happening in the brain that shows anticipatory, right, or pre-sentiment biomarkers that are happening. Like it's definitely a physical feeling, and maybe it's galvanic skin response or something else, right? But I feel like that could be measured somehow, and that's kind of how I arrived at my first tech stack, and that's when I kind of started CCW, was to formalize it outside of just being Jared, right? Let's like formalize this, give this a company, and then I've started to create a website and, host my data on there that's public. I think transparency is really important with this stuff. So that's kind of how I got to CCW, was just this path of thinking that we can collect more, or try to understand more about it and listen differently, right? Not just listen with a video camera, but listen with these other sensors and kind of see what's going on. And it also came through speaking at Roswell, where we met up, which was a ton of fun, and getting that little grant, and then doing the homework of just trying to get all these, because like, dude, the software-defined radio really wants to work on PC. There's like not a lot of Apple apps for it, right? It's like a PC thing. And then even then it's like, is it on Android? Is there a difference between a tablet OS in the marketplace and then also like a Chromebook or a laptop OS? Like, it was crazy just to get all those 3 things kind of streamed together. So that's my answer. That's how I got there. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. And I think you're absolutely spot on there. The observer has always been so important in this subject. You think about UFO cases historically, there have been so many where multiple observers to the same event have seen different things or felt and experienced different things. So of course that's data rich there, what you can kind of capture from looking at that angle, let's say. So I think that's fascinating and well worth it. So let's talk about today then, because we've spoken for the last couple of weeks, and you've shown me some videos, and I'd like you to show kind of what you've been working on now and how it looks, and your aim for this to roll it out publicly as well. So if you want to go into that, then yeah.
Yeah, I'll get into that. And one more thing with it is, like, I think that the consistency or the reproducibility is important. And I don't mean reproducibility like it's summoning. I just mean that, you know, you can go out there and try, and maybe 1 in 20 times something happens. But even then, 20 times is better chances than waiting for a UFO to fly over my house, right? Like, what are the odds of that, right? So something, or the work that you did with Dan, where you went to, was it in Brazil that you guys went down to, right? To Colombia, to a hot spot, like somewhere there's something reoccurring, I feel like is low-hanging fruit for scientific inquiry,
of
right?
Course.
And, and we don't have to wait. I advocate for government disclosure, but I think we could do stuff too. Like, we don't have to just wait.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much.
So all that stuff, I'm really, like, your trip is equally as motivating to me. Like, let's go figure it out, and, you know, or do our best, right? Let's go.
Of course, yeah.
We'll have fun too. Like,
100%.
How fun does that sound? Let's go to Colombia. Yeah. Okay, so videos. So I'll share my screen, and I think it's this one. Yeah, share screen.
Cool. And then just talk us through it. You can play it multiple times if it's short or whatever. I just want to really get a good idea. Right.
So this is, you know what, here, before I even get to it. So this is what I was just seeing in the past. Okay, this is just like flash bulbs, and you'll see it kind of from up here. As I pan left. I know it's really dark. I apologize. There's the Big Dipper. You see one flash, two flash, three flashes. And you can even see this is the arm of the Big Dipper here.
Yeah,
so,
I see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So in satellite phenomenon, if anything, they would flare once, but things don't flare 3 times, right? Like,
and that seemed to move in an arc as well.
Maybe I was kind of moving. I mean, I can stay look at that. Yeah. And then my initial text stack now, you'll see. So, and I'll pause this. So you see right in the beginning, you can see I have all 3 here. It's kind of fading over it. You see, there we are. So this is my heart rate monitor on the bottom, and I'm logging this. So there is a graph, but it's not the best graph. Like, it's a complete graph. It's not rolling. So eventually it kind of gets possible to see. The EEG on the right here is rolling, so this is like a nice graph to have. And then here you can see my software-defined radio, and I'm looking around that 1.6 gigahertz range, right? So this was kind of that initial tech stack that I was able to figure out. And then what I'm doing is I have the audio on this tablet that's recording all these apps, right? Doing a screen recording. I line the audio, almost like movies, right? With like the snap, with the audio that's from my Skywatch. So when this Skywatch fades in, really, this movie has doubled audio, but they're synced up together, so you can kind of see what's going on with SDR or the EEG as we're making contact. So,
and the EEG is a physical headset that you've built as well that you wear, right?
I didn't build it, so no, I am using an existing third-party one. It's called the Muse. I think it's meant for studies, but at one point they had like an open, wasn't an open API, but they're allowing researchers and academics to kind of tap into it to do research with it. I think they've since closed that down, but there's this app called Mind Monitor that is basically just, it connects to the Muse and gives you a CSV of your data, right? So it's just like simple EEG reader there. Yeah, but I have a physical headband on for that, and then I also have a strap on for my heart rate monitor that's being recorded in the background as well.
Right, gotcha. All
right, so, and this camera is a little bit different. That last one was my iPhone. This one's a Psionics, so the light's a little more blown out. But I think I'll give an arrow on this one.
David, right there in front. Oh.
And then it's just gone.
Yeah, you see that? Those 2 flashes, and it's gone. Did you see that?
This way I'm trying to
come here and look, dude.
Wow, okay.
And then I'll give you more. I got a few more here.
Sure.
Wow, that's so good, David.
Forgive my camera being shaky.
We got a lot of data.
No problem.
Oh, and there's more than one person.
I'm with David Hooper tonight on this one.
Oh, okay.
Look at up here.
Doing full sensor work.
That's 2 now. Above the Big Dipper.
And if you look at the EEG graph, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm really curious about the delta wave.
Okay.
Because those are normally like sleep.
Okay, so that's bull.
Those are normally really.
Maybe it's not even done.
I just want to show you that stop flashing. Like back in this one real quick. Oh wait, not that one. I'm sorry. It was event 3. Where'd you go? Like look at this delta spike right here. You see the delta right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that because those are more like sleep waves those waves would be dominating like during sleep, right? So kind of curious. So those are a little further back, and then let's see here. Let's see what this one is. I think you'll see 3 flashes.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a satellite again, or I saw the
We're all talking about it.
No, bro.
No, bro, it's not a satellite. It's funny. He's off to the edge. A little more.
Okay,
I think that triangle is an artifact from the lens because it's so close to the edge there.
Okay.
But and let me see. Let me just see if one more here maybe.
Oh no, this is a backyard thing that never.
Oh, that was just one little person not in there. So yeah, you could see, and that's some of how I'm trying to document it, just to give you a visual there. And how I got onto this app is because like my post-processing from these takes forever right now. Like, because I basically have to do the analysis, I have to mark as precisely as I can when are these flash bulbs or potentially anomalous things occurring, and scrubbing through the video and developing those timestamps right now is kind of like this. It's also a little flawed and it's very time consuming, right, for me to do it because I'm basically using aligned audio, right, to get those two things aligned. And it's just not true, right? And I want it to be as true as possible. And I'm manually building documents. I'm scrubbing back and forth to mark start and end times for stuff. And I'm also moving data around from the cloud. The CSV files alone get into the gigabytes because they're 256 rows every second. So if you're out there for 20 minutes, you have like tens of thousands of rows of data, right? So those files get real big. And so then I just thought I've worked with large data sets a lot as part of my work, and I thought maybe, and I've used AI to help me process some of that and worked with macros and Google Apple scripts and stuff like that. And I thought maybe I could just code an app for this, right? And we can get both the camera and the EEG all in one app, right? Truly time synced off the same clock, and then allow the user to give a button where as they're doing a Skywatch, they can mark when they're seeing things, right? I'm working on this review section. So after you mark that, it'll basically pull up a little mini clip, a few seconds on each side of that, and you could scrub to get it exactly aligned, right? And then it'll export all of the data that I need. It's basically creating for me those potentially significant events document, and it's giving me my CSV, and it's giving me my full length video. And what I want it to do is to also give me those little clips of video, so I don't have to go back and make, it's already highlighting, here's what you thought was contact, and it gives me a little 5-second video of it, something like that. So it's really just this way for me to speed up the process of the analysis part of it and kind of just getting all those things aligned. And that's huge for me, like, because that allows me just to put one thing on my head and go with my phone, and I'm ready to go, right, and collect some data, and it's giving me all those kind of data points that I'm looking for. And I thought, other people might be interested. So if I'm making an app, just put it on the App Store, right, and other people can use it too.
Yeah.
And maybe you're practicing remote viewing, and you feel like you have this impression that you got the target right. You could start to mark, and if you see that you got it right, what was my brain doing when I saw this thing that eventually gets revealed to me?
Okay. Yeah.
Or let's say you're trying to, and I haven't done this, but do an OBE, right? And you're trying to astral project, and you're supposed to go through this like vibrational stage. I'm less familiar with this stuff, but go measure it, right? Maybe it's like, if I like basketball and you practice shooting free throws and you build muscle memory with it, right? And maybe there's a little way just to, help yourself get better at this. If that's your goal, or maybe your goal is just to try to understand your brain more, right? Or maybe your goal is just to add data to the narrative that you're telling your friends and family, right? So there's lots of potential, and I'm really excited about getting it.
That is really cool. Really cool. Really excited to see how this develops, and where can people kind of keep up with this? Is the website kind of the best place to see how you're getting on with all that?
That's pretty static, to be honest. I update that less. We did just put this summer. I went out to Contact in the Desert and met up with some friends there, and unofficial or unofficiated with the actual thing, but just as friends, we decided to do a little reach out. And Tyler from Total Disclosure was there, and he put the EG on it. So we made like a little documentary on it. So I just put that on the website, and that is consciouscontactworks.com, consciouscontactworks.com. But you also can follow on Twitter, which I'm more active. So if we finish a session with other people and I'm hosting a new round of data or whatever, I'll tweet about that stuff. And that is at conconworksinfo is the handle for that on X or Twitter.
Perfect, man. I'll make sure I link all of those in the description. I'm gutted I didn't get to come and meet you guys that night at Contact. I was like, had 10 million things to do.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
So let's talk about, you obviously did some work with Skywatcher last year, I believe. So how did that all come about? Tell us about that journey.
So it's the Echo products I gone through 3 iterations. Iteration 1 was let's build this physical tech stack and mail it to people, and that didn't kind of work out. The second one is let's host events. So I did that this summer, right? Like I just talked about, and bring people to it, and let's do that, which is time consuming and laborious. And so then now I'm working on this app to kind of just get it out to people. And if they want to have their own hardware, then more power to them.
Sure.
And so I think it was early on when I was sending those sets out that I got wind of James Hodgkins was one of the guys that reached out to me. Right. And we spent some time developing our relationship for what felt like, for months. And then, yeah. And so then I got invited out there, and I was like, I didn't know what it was. Dude, to be honest, I had started a new job, and I called out in advance, but I missed what was supposed to be my first day of work to go, right? But I didn't even know what it was. It was like, they weren't telling me anything, Skywatcher wasn't even a word being used back then, right? It was just like this, kind of like this general HICE type event, right? That I was being invited to is a HICE practitioner. What their language was psionic assets, right? And so I go out there, and there's like maybe 4 of us or something like that, and then there was like a video team doing with really nice cameras, like a video team, then a data collection team, and then the CR team, which I think I don't know if all of those are Skywatcher, but the CR team is like the guys that often are interviewed, like Fred Baker and those types of guys, Jake Barber and those types of guys. And so I was only able to go for like one day because I was like trying to get back to, start a new job. And so at night we did these, I spent some time just getting to know people. And to be honest, like the guys on Jake's teams, and I'm bummed that I'm forgetting this one dude's name, but they were super nice, and they had really interesting stories to tell themselves, right? I was teasing. Yeah. So those were really nice guys. And more than the video guys or the data guys or even the experiencers, I ended up like hanging out with those guys the most, the CR guys. And those guys were all real well, or good people. And so at night we did this experiment, and we were blindfolded. I think you could see this on News Nation, right? So we were blindfolded, and we had a spotter. And the idea was that I'm supposed to try to make contact. And Vinny, let's say you're my spotter. So I'm blindfolded, and I'm basically supposed to say, okay, I think they're coming from behind me, right? And then you're basically the eyes for me to go see if I'm able to do it blindfolded. And
right.
That was, I don't think I had much success that night, to be honest. And it was also foreign to me because I'm so used to seeing it as being part of like this exchange, right? And if like I cut it off, it felt like it's just like half of it's missing in a way, right? Like it's like a car without a driver or something, right? Like both those things need to be kind of together. But then we all stayed up late that night, and there was like, we had this view of these mountains, and over this little patch of them, dude, like around the size of the Big Dipper, maybe, okay? But over this patch of them, there was like this continuous kind of flaring, okay? So like something kind of comes up and flares and then dims real short, right? And maybe another one comes from the different direction and kind of crosses through it, or one's at a slightly different angle, not like Starlink where they're all kind of like in a line like that, like
right.
Random timings every few seconds. Sometimes it'd be 5 seconds, you see none, and then 2 seconds later you might see 2 at once, and then 1 at 3 seconds later, right? But they're just like constant, and it was one for hours, and we're up late into the night, right? Like well past, you know, I think this, well, I think we all understand this is important to say. Satellites don't have lights on them, right? So like it's a waste of energy. No satellite would have like a bulb that you're seeing from Earth, right? You know what I mean? So the only time you see satellites is when they're reflecting the sun, right? And you only get that window like 2 or so hours after sunset, right? So by the time it's 1 at night, like there are no satellites that are visible anymore because the sun's too far, Earth is rotated too far away, right? And there's no sunlight on them to see them. And another thing is there's not a lot of satellites that flare. Okay, so if there used to be this set called iridium satellites or an iridium flare, and that would give this kind of big flare in the sky as it was moving, and you could see it's on this linear path. And those all got decommissioned like in 2018 or so. And literally like the astronomers, like people that work with telescopes and just do sky watches that aren't part of UFO stuff, there was a hashtag they created called Flare Well, because they were mourning that we wouldn't be seeing any more flaring because this iridium class of satellites was the thing that predominantly gave us flaring. And so I want to add that. And then additionally, you wouldn't see something flare more than once. There's a tumbling satellite, which is a very unique kind of thing that you could see, but nothing's going to like flare up, come back down, and then flare up again, right? If it's literally just part of Earth's rotation, you get one kind of curve as it's rotating over. So anything that's kind of giving multiple bursts is either something low like a plane or a helicopter that's flashing lights, right? Or it's something else, right? But I'm really curious about that. So what these things were, I was really curious about. And I remember, I'm just speaking from my own angle, okay? So I'm not trying to tell other people's stories, but other people had night vision goggles there, some of those CR guys, and they were saying in their minds, like there's just more that you could see, than the naked eye. And so this summer I went to Sedona, and I went on Melinda Leslie's tour, which you have to go on. Like anyone that has doubts or just go to Sedona, book yourself with Melinda Leslie's tour, and go do that Skywatch because it's amazing. And she brought out these 3rd-gen military night vision goggles. And so when I was doing them, and when she talks at first, right, and introduces the night, and she was saying like, man, we've had like fleets lately. We might see fleets. I'm just like, even though I'd been in this for years, I'm like, that's such an outrageous claim. You know what I mean? Like, how can you be so confident? You know what I mean? Like a fleet, and but then Vinny, dude, and she was saying that there's this place called Secret Valley that Ross and Jesse just talked about with her, something where it's alleged dumb or something like this, right? And and over that area, there was just this like high traffic and nowhere else in the sky. It's literally like this little box on the horizon too, like kind of closest to the mountains. And just like with Skywatcher, there was just this consistent kind of flaring. And then you put on the night goggles and it's even more mind-blowing because it's not like one thing flaring up. There's actually like 20 objects and only one of them flares up and then dies off. And two really interesting things is when it dies off, I saw multiple times, it just disappears completely. Like it doesn't die off to where you can't see with the eye anymore. And you can still kind of track the satellite with the night vision. Because the night vision was so strong. Like even in the foothills, you could see lights of like houses and stuff. And then you take them off and you can't even see it, right? Like it's like incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so you would expect to see something still moving and it would just disappear. And I remember thinking to myself, like, God, if this is because I saw the flash bulbs and the flaring, and those are things you would see during human initiated contact, right? And I'm like, is CE5 or HICE not like, is nothing even appearing? It's not summoning or bringing anything here or making it appear. Maybe it's just activating something that's already here, which I'm not making that claim. That's what I walked away.
Sure. No, I understand.
With. Yeah. And then Beatrice's paper came out, right? Dr. I don't want to slaughter her last name. Dr. V, we'll say.
Villarreal.
And, yes. And she has, I don't know if those are connected, but I'm kind of curious about all that. So that was one of the things with Skywatcher, at least from my perspective, that we tried those experiments, and I think there was more going on, but I was only there for that one day. And I also want to clarify, like, I am not Skywatcher. Like, I was a guest,
sure.
I got invited to that. I don't have any official capacity with them. I'm thankful to do that. I love seeing kind of the citizen science being done, like we talked about with you in Columbia or some of the stuff, I guess I'm trying to do. So they're on a whole other level though. And hopefully good things come from that. So, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. It's so exciting and encouraging. And I've always said I have a lot of respect for anybody putting boots on the ground or taking it upon themselves to do that work, put the work in, because, you know, very rarely is it funded. It's all self-funded. It's time consuming. And when you're trying to live a normal life and raise a family and all that good stuff at the same time, it is taxing on people. So yeah, hats off to you and the Skywatch team and anybody doing it personally. And I suppose I'd like to end on people that may watch this or come across Greer or, I don't know, Cisco Pax Wells and any kind of HICE related content, and they kind of are new to it and they find it interesting. Is there any one piece of advice you would give them to sort of find their way into it?
I mean, I think if you're curious and there's like and that curiosity has like I don't want to say this too heavily, but if there's like still a shred of humility left, where we're like we're not curious to own, but we're curious because we don't know everything, right? Like I think like if you're going in that way, like this thing, unlike anything other else that I've studied, there's something about it that literally meets you halfway back, and not just with contact, but like the efforts you put in. You'll have people that pop in front of you that will explain things or you know, suggestions to read books, almost just like I was talking about earlier. But there's like this momentum with it that's hard to put to words, and like get ready. Yeah, no. My advice would just be that like it's if you're curious about it, it'll probably happen. Like right. So like just like you'll get what you wish for. Yeah, and let me think about anything else. That's a really good question you asked.
Yeah, it's kind of general and probably quite tough because I suppose it's very individual as well. And it makes me think of people going, oh, well, it's real. And I'll go out and try it and then I don't see anything. You know, I suppose you've got to have real, true, positive intentions and a certain mindset and a certain humility. You mentioned that, you know, humble yourself. So. Yeah,
it's definitely real. I mean, if you're coming with exposure to UFOs, you probably land a little softer, right? If you're coming at this with like no exposure to anything kind of in this realm, right? Then like it's definitely real, and it'll put you on your heels. It's jaw dropping, right? So just it's super real, and I guess like I think it's important too to look at the free study, or you know, like I said, a lot of this stuff is positively transforming, and you know, if there was expect love, go in for love, right? Yeah. And what this is it's already a part of reality. It's almost just like recognizing it or something. Like it's
right.
Yeah. So that'd be my general advice, I guess. That's a tough question.
Amazing.
I'll probably change.
Yeah, it really is. No, I think that was a good way of putting it as well. So no, I appreciate that. Well, Jared, listen, thank you, man. Really always appreciate chatting with you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Vinny, thank you so much, dude. It's my pleasure again, and it's good seeing you again too, man.
Awesome. I will make sure all of your links are in the description below. Thank you to everyone for watching. Please go and check out Jared and keep up with his work. But for now, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.